Hello, everybody. This is Stu Smith along with Tom Cowan, and my friend is back
Hey,
after
Stu.
after a few months of I won't call it rest and relaxation because this podcast is specifically made for you and
Thank
for
you.
those of you who have been injured before in the past or have been sick seriously where you had to take several months and get chemicals pumping through your body, or you had something, a serious ailment where you just couldn't work out, couldn't do anything, and your goal was just to heal. So my friend Tom, that's what he's been doing. He's been
Thank
healing up. So we're glad you're back with us
Thank you,
and
pal.
and among the living.
Yeah, me too.
So Tom, let's get us started on this thing, and let's try to frame this around recovery from serious illness or accidents, or just accidental injuries that occur in training.
Absolutely. So, Stu, you are now on podcast number 37,
That is correct.
Tactical Fitness Report with Stu Smith.
Yep.
So, this is about recovering from some form of illness or treatment or injury. And, Stu, what would really be helpful is to give us some basic ideas on, you're someone who, like the people in this listening to this or watching this, are athletes. They're training, whether they're tactical athletes or they're like the stuff you and Jeff have been focusing on. They're folks that are really serious about joining the military or like professions and preparing for it. And what we've talked about up till now has been a lot about how do you keep from injuring yourself. You and I spent a fair amount of time early on mobility and
Yep.
how you fit that in and how all of that works. But now you're at a point where, yeah, there you go. There we go. Tactical mobility book.
That came up since you've been gone.
I
Hot off the presses.
I didn't see anything showing up at my doorstep, pal.
Oh, sorry.
You didn't know which one I was at, right?
It's in the mail. It's in the mail.
Yeah, there we go. No, you actually gave me just so everybody knows, I had the galleys for it.
Okay.
But now that the question is, you had to kind of shut down for a while. And as you know, I tried during the treatment phase to keep going, and you kept me going. But unfortunately, like every one of these, once it was over, the recovery was almost worse than the treatment. And then I had to shut down. And so I've just been getting back at it. And as you know, I was fine until about a week ago when my knees started bothering me because of some residual leftover stuff that settled into my knees. And so how do you deal with this, Stu? How do you deal with that cycle that you've tried? Because like all of us, that are strong-minded, we're going to try to keep going as long as we can.
Yeah, I always say this, there's a fine line between mental toughness and stupidity, right? And
Yes.
I'm not calling you stupid. However, I'm guilty of it as well. If I've not been doing anything, I'm going to want to, that's the key word, I want to pick up where I left off.
Yeah.
Right? So I will look at my training program and say, well, this was week 6 of a 12-week program. That's where I was. That's where I'm going to start off after 2 months of rehab or being ill or whatever, right? Well, that's not the best option, right? I tell everybody this, whether you are a beginner or not, is to treat yourself like a beginner, at least for a week, right? And if you've been ill or injured for longer than that, give yourself another week. Maybe even a month if you've been out of the system for, a few to several months. Yeah. So, treat yourself like a beginner. And when I say beginner, find the easiest workout that you've ever done and make it easier. Focus on, some light cardio, some stretching, some calisthenics, maybe even use those machines in the weight room that you swore you would never use. But isolation works real well, and they work really well if you're trying to work around an injury. Let's say you're not sick, you're just injured. let's say you have an elbow injury or a
Yeah.
knee injury,
Yeah.
those are perfect. You can still do upper body, if you have a knee injury, and core work, and maybe find some cardio that doesn't hurt your knee, some non-impact cardio. Maybe swimming doesn't hurt. You do some, straight-legged flutter kick type of stuff versus the big scissor kicks or breaststroke kick. But yeah, there's always a way to work around an injury. Whether it's you got an upper body injury, still run, work your legs, those type of things. So you can still stay at it. You might just have to lay off some of the specific workouts that you've done in the past and just take out a section. But for you specifically, you have to treat yourself like a beginner. And, I have a 45-day beginner workout program that is so easy. I hate to send it to people that I know are pretty hardcore, right? I mean, I know you can do, hundreds of push-ups in a workout and 100 pull-ups in a workout. And, for me to send you something that doesn't even have pull-ups in it, is like, it almost feels like malpractice. You know what I mean? It's but do it. Just get back into the habit of 20 to 30 minutes of some form of activity, and that activity can be as easy as walking. It can be hopping on your bike and not doing anything hard, just getting the joints moving again, and stretching, working on the mobility stuff. So
yeah, so that's a good point, because I've spent, and I know we talk about this a lot, but I've spent a lot of time as I've gotten older being careful not to injure myself when we work out. And you and I talk about this a lot. I know that's really important to you, and you've said to me so many times, the best workouts are the ones where I walk away and I'm not injured, right? I mean, it's I know that's a negative.
Well, or in any pain whatsoever.
Any pain. Actually, that's the one you say. You say where I'm just pain free.
Yeah.
So let's take this situation that I just went through. So I had to shut down for probably, I don't know, 6 weeks, where I know we had to stop doing stuff. So I had to shut down for at least 6 weeks, and I just started back. But I probably even there overdid it based on what you just said, right? So I probably should just buckle down and do that 45-day beginner program just to get myself going back.
Right.
But I'm going to have to work around my legs, right? Because now let's deal with that for a second. So when I told you I had, that the
knee cramping and everything.
Yeah, the cramping in my knees.
Yeah.
And so go through that a little bit, because there was no structural issue at all on my knees. And they said, you had no structural issue at all. So talk everyone through that just a bit, because that was fascinating to me. I've never heard anybody say that. Well, by the way, it worked.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So you had some electrolytes in you that tend to help. Well, here's the problem, is when you're getting pumped full of medications, and many of these medications are chemicals, to help you fight, cells in your body. It makes you sick. It makes you ill. You don't feel like eating. It's hard to retain any fluids, sometimes. And so you're really kind of dehydrating yourself just because your body wants to get rid of everything that's in there. You're going to dehydrate yourself. And along with that dehydration, you're going to lose a lot of electrolytes as well. And that's what happens. And, when you lose a lot of electrolytes, your muscles aren't really working and communicating correctly, with the body. And, as well as, anybody who's been running in the hot sun and sweating profusely, you start cramping, you're going to get leg cramps and calf cramps and side cramps, all those things that, tend to occur when you're really starting to get low on your electrolytes. So my suggestion was, treat what you have right now kind of the way you do the flu. So get yourself some chicken noodle soup, eat it. If you look in the back of a chicken noodle soup can, it is loaded with potassium, sodium. You can also add in magnesium to supplement as well. All of those things are electrolytes, and you're losing a lot of them, through chemical process or just pure natural sweating and things like that. So I'm glad to hear that helped, because it was a complete guess, because I was like, what the, I've never heard anything like this. It's the only thing that made sense. Like I said, you didn't hurt anything. And you get bilateral cramping. It usually, when you get cramps on both sides, or you get injuries on both sides, it's usually not an injury, right? It's usually something that you can say you've done through training, or it's something the body is processing and it's just not wanting you to do that anymore. So that's been my experience with bilateral cramping and things like that, is it's usually a different process versus you're doing too much. There's something going on, and usually it's electrolytes, or it might be a hormonal imbalance. It might be a couple other things. I'm glad, we found out real quick that, by adding some more electrolytes and hydrating, that took care of the problem, and so anyway, you gotta look at things that way as well.
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting one though, Stu, because your point to me was, look, your body was intaking a lot of chemicals, whether it be the chemical treatments or medications they were giving you to recover, right? You're intaking a lot of chemicals. And then your point was your body is naturally purging those out of the system. So even though you may hydrate yourself normally with drinking a lot of water and stuff, you still need to probably even go more overboard. Yeah. But your point was, to me, you're getting your knee muscle, something's going on where your muscles in your knee are not firing correctly if they're cramping on you when you're using them.
Yeah.
And so I started doing the treatment you said, which was, all right, do the chicken noodle soup thing before you go out and do your workout, and see if it helped. And it did. It helped. I mean, it hasn't cramped since.
Oh, nice.
Now,
yeah.
They hurt like crazy because they were cramping for like 6 or 7 days, right?
Yeah.
So now they're
just sore. Because you got to figure what a cramp is. I mean, a cramp is, it's a flex, right? And your muscle is flexing, and it doesn't want it to stretch at all, and when you try to move, or it's going to stretch and it's going to hurt. So, foam rolling is going to be painful for the next few days. I mean, but it will be helpful as well. But I think the electrolytes and adding more water is going to be helpful too. And when in doubt too, you can get a blood test for these things too, and just see that you're low on electrolytes. Potassium's probably low, sodium's probably low. So,
Stu, they'd done enough blood tests on me. I kind of didn't want to.
I understand.
Kind of annoying.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting tests was that I could stop it by stretching the muscle. Yeah. Right? I could stop the cramping.
Right. So you figured that out.
Yeah.
On your own, right? When you were out walking, you said, let me try to stretch it, and it felt better. That's kind of led me to what I thought it was as well, just being kind of low on the electrolyte side.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. I mean, I know, that we all kind of are trained that way with calves cramps when you're, swimming with fins and stuff like that. So it was my natural reaction was to stretch it to see if I could get it to go away. But I think that's an interesting problem that people could have, right? It could be mine was caused by a certain specific thing, but that kind of situation could be caused by pretty much anything.
Well, yeah, you know what? Let me tell you a little story. I had an email the other day that was interesting, and it's kind of parallel to yours. A guy that had pneumonia, so he had to be out of training for 2 to 3 weeks, he said. He was unable to do a lot of cardio. Just his lungs hurt. His heart was skyrocketing every time he tried to run, so he just shut it down for like 3 weeks. But he didn't shut it down really all enough. I mean, he was still doing workouts. He just said I wasn't going to do cardio. And unfortunately, it never went away, so he shut down for 3 weeks. And then he said he was starting to feel better at the end of 3 weeks. He started running again. And he said, I ran for 4 miles, and, not that that's long distance, but when you just recover from pneumonia, it is. And then he got bronchitis. And then that bronchitis turned back into pneumonia. So if he could have just done nothing for 3 weeks, he probably would have been fine. But, now he's 6 weeks later, he has to rest another 3 weeks. Right. So, I mean, he just prolonged that thing by not just focusing on recovery and resting, and unfortunately it is hard. I mean, I am the type of person where when I'm sick or when I'm injured, that I felt like my body has failed me. And I go in this mini depression, and it kind of sucks. My wife hates it, and she calls me a big baby, but, and it just slaps me and I get out of it. I'm fine. But, I have to realize that I need to focus on recovery, and it's hard. It's hard if you've worked out for all your life, 5-6 days a week, and it's part of your life. It's hard to shut it down, but it's in the end, it's the best and fastest way to get better. So you can once again progress back to where you were. You don't want to just jump right back into where you were. So,
yeah, I think that's a really critical point, that those of us that have done this for a long time, that is a problem. It's a very difficult thing to do. I didn't stop working the whole time.
right.
And I just did different things. And then adding that on, I mean, I'm convinced that I extended my recovery time by at least 2 or 3 weeks because I did too much during all of that period and didn't shut myself down. The problem is, for people like us with the type of personalities we have, it's really tough to do that.
It is. That's why I have a wife that doesn't work out that much. She's like my perfect match, because she'll just say, don't work out. You cannot, she'll just tell me I can't do it. So
I do understand.
She doesn't understand my fascination with working out as much as I do, which is fine. We balance each other out. So
Stu, I see we're getting a little froggy there. I see the trident behind you. And so what's that?
You know what? Somebody gave that to me as a gift. It's a really cool, like it's a little piece of wood plat. So you can see the guy
awesome.
He carved that.
That is
with
awesome.
I'll post up his where you can find that.
That's very cool.
In the description below. And then the other one is an anchor.
I see that.
Right, that's made out of cedar wood, and they're just gifts. Somebody gave me as gifts.
Really nice.
I thought it was really cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah, one of my guys' dads, who his son trained with me for a while, and he's a SEAL now. His friend does these plaques like that, and he got him to do a design, and he made a son one and made me one. So it was nice.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
it's really beautiful. Really beautiful. So Stu, let's talk about specific. So let's move away from the treatment from illness, and let's move into you've now got something. So let's talk about, it doesn't matter how you got it, but in my case, I've tweaked my knee.
Right.
So how do I now, you're going to tell me, all right, Tom, because of what you went through, you're going to do 45-day beginner workout. Okay, I got it. But let's say that was not the cause. Let's say that I just went out yesterday. I now tweaked my knee. What do I do?
It's not really much difference. I would avoid movements of that knee, especially any pounding movements. You can do non-impact movements for sure. Find the ones that don't hurt. If rowing doesn't hurt, that's a pretty good knee movement. It's going to stretch the knee. It's going to flex the muscles around the knee. So if rowing doesn't hurt, that's a great one. If biking doesn't hurt, that's a great one. You're at least adding some knee mobility to your workout. But if those hurt, you're going to have to think of something else. You may have to try elliptical, where you don't really bend your knee that much, or swimming, and just focus on straight-legged flutter kicks. I would avoid fins, because that's going to put a little more pressure on your knees as well. Just kickboard, swim, or just drop your knees all together and just swim with your arms, and, be careful on the kickoffs. I mean, I remember I've nursed a few knee injuries where I had to do a one-legged kick off the wall instead of, kicking off both legs. But I was still able to do freestyle type swimming and things like that. Still able to ride a bike, without a whole lot of pain. As long as you feel like it's getting things warmed up. And here's the deal too with injuries, right? If you can warm things up and that injury kind of goes away, right? Just after about 5 or 10 minutes of movement, 9 times out of 10, it is just tendonitis, right? Where you've got the blood flow to that joint and now it doesn't hurt anymore. However, with a tendonitis, what happens is once that knee settles down and your body temperature settles down, there's going to be a little inflammation that's still there and it hurts. So, if you've had some knee injuries that you've run through in the past, you'll know what I'm saying. It's like it hurts for the first 5 minutes, plantar fasciitis, knee tendonitis, whatever, hurts for the first 10 minutes, it goes away while you're running. Then you come back, you sit down, try to walk again, and you can't even walk up a flight of steps. So that's tendonitis. Anything other than that, you probably don't need to stay on the self-medication side, and probably go see a medical professional, physical therapist, something like that, because it could be ligament damage, could be cartilage damage, meniscus type things. So, but like you said, when you told me what was going on, I was like, I think you just need to hydrate and get some more electrolytes in you. But the thing is, can you work around your injury? That's the first question you need to ask yourself. So are there ways that you can adopt what you are currently doing and work around that injury? If so, do that. Right? You might have to, instead of run, you might have to bike or elliptical or swim. If it's, you might have to skip the leg PT or the squats and deadlift exercises with a knee injury. Maybe just focus on stretching that day instead of lifting. So there are minor, or try to get into the weight room and use the machines where, you're doing leg extension, leg curls, very, very light, and just kind of work through a rehab program, that way. At the end, if none of that's working after a couple weeks, go to a physical therapist and say, this has been bothering me for 2 weeks, doctor or physical therapist, what do I need to do to make it better? And there's a variety of things that they'll do. They might dry needle it. They might, heat and ice it, do some massage, foam rolling, things like that.
Yeah. Gotcha. Are there any other thoughts about this subject, Stu, other than, if you're sick, back off and let yourself recover. And then when you start back as a beginner.
Yeah. I have a link in there too, to a nice little beginner workout in the description. Check that out. If you're a beginner, 2, if you've been down for a while and need to restart, it's a good way to restart. But I would say this, let's talk about like sometimes differentiating a head cold and a chest cold.
Okay.
Because that's a real common one, like especially around here in the fall, allergies go crazy. And I have from here up, it's congested, but my lungs are fine. Right. So as long as my lungs are fine, I can still run, I can still swim, I can lift weights hard, get my heart rate up and all that. However, once it goes below here and it's now in my throat and getting into my lungs, that is when it really starts to impact your cardiovascular process, right? And your heart's going to beat faster because your lungs are working harder, and it's really not a good way to go. So you might need to shut it down, when that occurs as well. At least the hard cardio. So you have a head cold, fine to go. If you have a chest cold, back off and maybe do something that is not going to get your heart rate up that much.
Very interesting. I never thought about it that way. Yeah. Any other final thoughts on this subject, Stu?
No. When in doubt and you're hurting, find a stretching program.
The Tactical Mobility Book.
That's one of them. I also have a free link in here too, in the description. That's I call it the lower back plan, and it's really good. It stretches you out. It flexes your core. It, works all parts of the core from your shoulders down to your hips, stretches everything. That's a really good plan to do if you're kind of banged up, or at the end of a hard leg workout. It's a real good one as well.
Yeah. No, it's excellent. I've said this many times. I fit both that lower back plan and the lightweight shoulder workout into every workout I do, because I do it just because it that has kept me from having any kind of systemic issues with my body, other than the kinds of stuff that has come out just recently.
Yeah, I would say those two together are pretty solid little mobility day / stretch PT day.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll put those links in there too. They're free links, and you do these lightweight shoulders literally with very light weights. What, 5 pounds?
5 pounds max.
Yeah. That's about as heavy as you need to go. So
good. All right, pal. Well, it's great to see you.
You too. Glad you're back.
Thanks. So we are on to podcast number 37, Tactical Fitness Report with Stu Smith. This was about recovering from illness, treatment, injury, or whatever.
All right.
All right, pal. Later.
All right. See ya.